Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Monday, October 10th at 12:03 p.m. Let's do a round of Austerity Q&A. It's not like we're going to sit here talking about the next hot thing that's gaining all this attention, capital inflow, liquidity inflow left and right, and some asset is just garnering the attention, capital is flowing to it, prices are appreciating, capital gains are on the table. It's clearly we're in a zero-sum game. I wish that was not the case. I wish it was a positive sum game and there was excess liquidity, chasing opportunity, and this is by far still a negative sum game, not even a zero sum game. We go over to DeFi Llama and we'll check on the stable coins real quick. Albeit there's a 0.01% increase, it's a tremendous decrease in liquidity, and that's just where we are. Let's look over at the macro liquidity perspective. I don't have it open. Let's open it up real quick. Load layout. Here's liquidity. Boom, 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 boom. And it's still the same from the end of last week. So even Arthur himself noted this bump in liquidity, and that's probably the TGA. And maybe the reverse repos drained a little bit, or capital did not go into the reverse repos and was taken back by the banks, and something was done with them. But in any case, this is a very tight condition. Note these two price and duration tooltips of 20.49%, and we literally hit 29.49%. So it literally took 184 days, 1,288 days for this 20% dip in systemic liquidity between November 15th, Monday, November 2nd in 2015 to the bottom in the 29th of April in 2019 for a 20.49% reduction in liquidity. And we hit a 20.49% reduction in liquidity in less than a year, 259 days. So several years compressed into less than a year. That's how fast they drain liquidity from the system. And that is why we're seeing an absolute scramble over available liquidity. That's what everyone's doing. Everyone's fighting one another in an adversarial way to get as much of the liquidity as possible. And that's exactly why when the charts go down and they rip up, it's sold because someone's capturing that capital. They're taking it for themselves in a zero or negative sum environment. That is the behavior. It's a scavenger's environment. We get what you get, and you take it, and you run away from the table as fast as you can. That's where we are. That's the liquidity presentation to start things off. There's no positive movement. If anything, it's horizontal movement. Curve is basically stagnant for the last month. A range of what? 90 cents to 86 cents. 4-cent range of the last month so far. Convex is below the 100 SMA on the daily. Let's go out to the monthly. Doesn't give us much. Let's go into the weekly. Not enough data for the monthly. It's below the TWAP. I would look at convex on the weekly for the most favorable perspective of where we are. It is a little green on the weekly, which doesn't mean much. We're still below the TWAP. And why would liquidity flow into the system? Just because we have a pension or an appreciation for a particular asset doesn't make it any more special as compared to every other asset in the entire ecosystem, and not just the crypto ecosystem, but the entire risk asset ecosystem, which includes equities. So the same rules apply, meaning it's a negative sum game and it's an adversarial environment. So if it breaks to the upside, it's going to be sold and someone's going to take capital off the table. It's nice to see the horizontal price action. It's not going down. Not down is not disappointing. And then you have the argument we've been talking about for the last how many months? Is lower lows in or lower lows on the table? Are the lows in? Those are impossibilities, or it's an impossibility to answer such questions. Well, we know that in hindsight. A couple folks in the stream trying to get a sense of what the hell is going on in this market. Raul did a nice Q&A the other day, and he seems on edge a little bit. I don't know if anyone else got that sense, but he was very edgy in his presentation. Whether that phrase is the same as being on edge or offering an edgy presentation, maybe that is just a bit of his personality showing through. Whereas when he's in interview and Q&A type settings, it's a bit of a more restrained presentation. But that is just something that was I observed. Um, that doesn't mean much. It's just a statement of observation. Dan's in the house. Secondary set maze. A pleasure. Dark in August. Good morning. A pleasure. Tell us what's happening with Ethereum deflation. When will the real staking incentives begin? Well, the staking incentives are already there. It's already live. Everything's playing out as expected. Ethereum is quite deflationary for the past week. It's quite extreme, actually. Well, it's still going down. We're still at 40 Gwei. So this is quite meaningful. Note that any of the inflation is locked, albeit it's exposed via RF and STF. So I would, via arbitrage, I guess the inflation is exported from the derivative wrappers back to available Ethereum liquidity or the available Ethereum price point, spot for that matter. So this is quite deflationary, but same thing applies. It's a negative sum game and it's adversarial, and we can look at the Ethereum price. And it's quite horizontal, which is not anything surprising. It's obviously quite a pronounced flag. And if you zoom out to the weekly, unfortunately, it's quite a pronounced bear flag. That's what a lot of folks in macro land are talking about with regard to Bitcoin as well. But this, you can't get more obvious than this. That's a heck of a flag. However you draw it, I mean, basically, you got some sort of, and you even have to draw it from up there. It could be from down here. That's a flag. So we're waiting for the break direction. I mean, how does it break to the upside? Where's the excess liquidity coming from? So maybe in an optimistic world, or if we want to be optimistic, the liquidity drains from some other part of the system. Pick a country that's having a catastrophe, and maybe that liquidity wants to flow into a speculative max volatile asset for some reason. I don't know. What I know is that hope will not make a portfolio do well. Hope will not protect your capital. Hope will not make an asset appreciate. So hope has no business in capital management. So this is just that time. This is exactly what austerity is. Austerity is designed to make you feel like you're wrong. You question everything, and it turns everyone into losers. Not in the derogatory sense, but in the antithesis of winning. You know, like a capital gains is a win, or a portfolio increasing in value is a win, and the antithesis of that is losing. So that's what I mean by that. It's quite an apt use of the terminology. Fugu's in the house, a pleasure. Wonder if keeping money in stablecoins and crypto could anyhow prevent traditional finance collapse. No, not at all. Traditional finance collapse takes down everything, including the crypto space. There'd be an absolute catastrophe. There'd be chaos everywhere, and there'll be riots and war. That's what happens if the traditional financial system collapses. Crypto does nothing in that regard. The value, but there's a lot to the phrase financial collapse, and really, it's all about the bond market, and it's the U.S. bond market for that matter. And I mean, look, financial collapse. How many countries around the world are experiencing financial collapse right now? I mean, literally, Japan's experienced financial collapse, and they intervene to prevent the yen from just spiraling out of control because they implemented the yield curve control. And the same thing is playing out in Britain. They're not at the currency intervention stage yet, but they just doubled down on their bond market purchases, and they call it QE, but obviously it's really YCC, yield curve control, but it's really a bailout of their pension system. If there was no intervention, the pension system would have been completely liquidated. and then it would have been a retirement population catastrophe. So what's going to happen there is almost for certain the same thing that happened in Japan. They won't be able to remove themselves from the bond market, the gilt market, and it'll eventually put extreme depreciative pressure on the pound, which has already been slaughtered. Already been slaughtered. Let's go out to the monthly. It's just devastated. 110. I mean, come on. Unless directionality persists until capitulation. What's capitulation? They're intervening. How does that stop and reverse? If they stop the intervention, the directionality just starts to persist. So this is heading in no good direction whatsoever. If anything, it's just accelerating. And that's part of why I just we're talking today, because this is not an environment for outperforming or achieving some sort of gain. This is an environment for survival and appreciating how horrible and disappointing austerity really is. One curious view, Raul. Wow, is there a chance the higher incentives will be applied? What do you mean higher incentives? So if you're thinking about just inflationary incentives, that's wrong. That will not occur. In fact, the Ethereum uh, yields will decrease as more Ethereum is staked. So obviously the dollar denominated yields increase proportional to the price point of Ethereum, so that you'll have to wait years for this market to recover to see new higher highs and a return of liquidity inflow, and that will in turn allow Ethereum to appreciate, which will allow the yields on positions to appreciate. So I would expect continued decrease of all yields. Now, obviously, if you're still chasing Ponzi yields throughout the crypto space, you're just begging for your portfolio to be destroyed because some large actor, let's say there's a $5 million market cap asset, some large actor is going to come in early with $1 million, $2 million. It's going to draw in a huge amount of capital. Maybe it'll draw in $1, $2, $3 million. They're going to sell the crap out of their $2 million position. When it turns into $4 million, they're going to capitalize the crap on the entire market for the asset. So this is a purely adversarial market where the few take from the many. Don't get yourselves involved with anything that looks like it's significantly outperforming in these market conditions, be it significant appreciation or significant ROI in the form of yield. This is a time where you can retain positions, and the base case must remain. You expect appreciation. This is a time where if you have something that you could sell for cash to have hopefully sold it in the past, or you could still sell it today. So you have enough cash. You could sell assets to raise cash. You need enough cash to pass the time to survive into the next period in which liquidity starts to reverse and flow back into the system, back into this emerging market. All those narratives are completely still valid. Um, So that's why we're here. This is the austerity chat, the austerity Q&A, baby, because we all have the same complexities that we need to think about and figure out and do better with. Have you seen what token is causing this Ethereum gas spike since the weekend? Yeah, Ponzunomics, nothing of interest, but whatever it is, it's garnering the attention from what I could tell of the Hex community, and obviously it's just a zero sum or negative sum game. The same thing applies. Liquidity is being drained. Adversarial environment. Few are capitalizing on the many. If you have a large actor, you could go in with a couple $1 million. You have a chance of capitalizing significantly on the small people, the $50 positions, $10,000 $50 positions, $100,000 $50 positions. The person with $2-3 million is going to capitalize the crap on those positions. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you want to try and attach to some outperformance of some asset that's doing crazy stuff with gas. What's pertinent there is that it's affecting gas, and gas is creating this very powerful deflationary pressure on Ethereum. And that's quite extraordinary to see. 45 glide. Keep up. Let it keep up. And this is where I have an Ethereum position that I will hold. I'm not really tempted to liquidate it at all. I do hold it in personal account rather than business account. So I do make different decisions based on personal versus business accounting. Um, so this is something that's more like a set and forget. I don't even think about it. Now, bear in mind, this is separate from cash, so I don't treat this as something that could be liquidated for cash. I have the cash that I need to traverse the period of austerity, separate and apart from this type of position. Um, Whoa, a couple of comments. Or should I say, prevent the losses of individuals? There's nothing that's going to prevent loss of capital. There's no such thing as value preservation. It doesn't work like that. If the financial system collapses, the value of gold completely gets obliterated. It goes to zero. Now, if you walk into a supermarket and the value of the dollar goes to zero, it's worthless. Do you think trucks are delivering food to the supermarket if they can't get paid? The whole system goes into convulsions. And gold doesn't do anything in the case of the fiat regime collapsing. There'll be chaos everywhere. So now you're talking about like preservation of value, where they have to engage in some sort of financial restructuring at the nation state level. Um, this is exactly why they confiscated gold 100 years ago. Um, and we're very speculative territory if we want to entertain that type of conversation and what they may do. But clearly, it's a different time compared to then, and we have CBDCs on the table. And do you think it would be a simple transition? Financial system collapses. Most people throw around that phrase, the financial system collapses, like it's nothing. Like it wouldn't cause chaos and rioting and violence and war. It'd be a catastrophe. And other people say, you just operate the world on a different currency, like it's nothing. The amount of nuance and subtlety and complexity involved in any type of transition of that magnitude would cause such chaos and volatility. I can't even put it into words. There's no transition. There's no going from A to B, old to new, and it just working. We're dealing with moving parts. We're dealing with society and people and humans have opinions, and humans are volatile and violent creatures that are protective. They will take from others. And that's why you get the social instability, the disorder, the chaos, the rioting, so on and so forth. And that's the reality of the situation we're in. Those cards are on the table. What sort of variables go into tracking the level of liquidity in the market? Cash. Arthur Hayes talked about Fed balance sheet minus reverse repo minus the Treasury General account. So this is a perspective that I appreciate. So I track it, liquidity drain, and you can see the comparison. You get some perspective there. With regard to looking at the crypto space as an emerging market, which is what I talk about. You talk about how many dollars it has captured. So the crypto space has captured $148 billion worth of US dollars that are deposited in either a bank account. Well, then again, Tether is not US dollars. So it is collateralized assets, and by definition, a euro dollar, which is a synthetic dollar. So this is a bit skewed in that regard. I guess the best way to describe the phenomena I'm talking about with regard to capturing dollars is USDC. I believe BUSD as well. I believe PAX. Some of these. Gemini. So a lot of these are Eurodollars, Liquidity, Alchemix, Abracadabra, synthetic dollars. HUSD is probably not a Eurodollar. It's probably a dollar deposits. Terra Classic. Oh goodness, that's still there. Frax is no, that's a euro dollar. Dai's a euro dollar. Tether's a euro dollar. Anyway, that's going down the list. The biggest two are Tether and USDC. So if we go over to USDC, there's $45 billion that have been captured in this emerging market. That it's not flowing out. It didn't flow out. So that's extraordinary when we have that conversation about an emerging market capturing dollars relative to where we were in 2019. It's an extraordinary inflow of capital that has proven sticky. It hasn't been a mass exodus of the $45 billion. Do we have a line chart of where it was? I think this might be close to highs. Wish we had a line chart. Yeah. Yeah, no, 50. So 55. Is that about $10 billion from the highs, give or take? Was that 20%? 18%? Probably 18% reduction from the highs. So it's 18% of the liquidity of actual dollars in this emerging market have been drained. Now you can do the same thing with Tether, but it's a little different because they're not actual dollars, they're synthetics, they're euro dollars because they're collateralized by assets that have value. What is it? The commercial paper or treasuries? However, they're managing their balance sheet at any given time. So that's interesting stuff. Um, I wonder if keeping money in stablecoins could prevent traditional financial collapse. So I hope that helps a little bit understanding the realities of the very burdensome situation that we're in. And there is certainly no certainty in this environment, and it's right to have a little bit of fear. So my wife likes to remind me that if I'm plugged into all this shit all day long, I'm going to have a fair amount of anxiety and be frustrated. So I try and be a little bit of both. I know I have to unplug for my own mental sanity, but it's also imperative to understand that we are on the verge of systemic volatility and but the fracturing of global financial systems and military conflict is on the table, and these are important things to understand that they're very close to occurring in very meaningful ways that will disrupt each of our individual lives. Now, on that note, go to the movies and hang out, and you have to do that to maintain sanity. Raul, One Curious View, Dark in August. Wow, is there a chance that higher incentive? No. We talked about that. Um, I want to know if there's a chance that net emissions turn positive again. Of course they will. As long as GWE is less than 15, net emissions turn positive. But that doesn't increase yield. That doesn't do any. You want the price of Ethereum to go up, and for the price of the Ethereum to go up, you need deflation. You want less circulating supply. You want people chasing fewer currency units in circulation, and that's how you lead to appreciation when the system turns positive sum again. Samuel Donnelly, do you lean towards building a position on CRV, CVX rather than Butterfly? I would just keep the stables and just and sleep on everything. I don't think there's any buying opportunity in the space unless you see an extreme capitulation to the downside. Now we had the capitulation event, and now the question becomes: is there lower lows? So you can look at the chart of truth for the crypto space, which is curved, and we had our capitulation down to 54 cents, and we're sitting at what 60, 70% higher. So that's when you're in a negative sum environment, you buy capitulations. You don't buy bearish market conditions. You don't buy austerity. You don't buy this miserable, depressing, slow depreciation over 3 months from $1.50 to 84 cents over 3 months. That's not something you buy waiting for it to miraculously find the bottom and hope it turns around. You buy it the 50, the 60 cents, the capitulation. There's a big capitulation. That's when you buy, not when it's just this slow bleed. I hope that helps. So entries, there's no entries. There's no the ladder effect. It goes up, it comes down. It goes up, it comes down. That's bullish market conditions. There's no entry under normal market conditions in this environment. Wait for capitulation, and it's going to be boring as hell sitting in dollars, but those dollars are outperforming the crap out of the market, and you get to survive. This is what it's about. It's about surviving. Um, I do like being paid in Ethereum, but already have a good GMX position. Now, that's another story. If you have lingering capital from the market cycle and lingering positions, GMX is great. I wish I bought GMX earlier in the 8, 10, $12 range. I think I had opportunity back then. But I didn't. It's okay. It's outside of my portfolio's potential anytime soon. But that's cool. You get paid. And then my position, that's probably comparable to what you're trying to describe, is my curve position, and questionably my convex position, whether I retain that or not on the 19th. And it pays you. So focus on income. Expect the income to go down, and it has been going down. And that's what it is. That's what this environment is. Dan, it's down 90% last I checked. No point to buy Zen. No, no. Of course, there's no point. It was a Ponzi. Of course, it's down 90%. Listen, 40 on the Gwei. That's all that matters. You see that? 40 on the Gwei. Great. That's all that came out of that. In irrational exuberance in this kind of market environment. B. Sarah, basic question. Can you explain the correlation between the BTC pairs and USDT pairs? What drives the price the most? Well, most of the shit is speculation. Some of it is value investing nowadays. So there's no reason to buy Bitcoin other than speculation. It doesn't do anything. It's not like people are using it for capital transfer. Maybe like they're experimenting with it in El Salvador, and they're experimenting with it in a couple of places over Lightning Network, because you're not going to make payments of Bitcoin on mainnet. You're going to be using Lightning Network. So that's cool. I'm cool with Bitcoin as a payments platform, but with regard to payments, the price of Bitcoin means nothing. If you have $10 and you want to pay a bill using Bitcoin Lightning Network, who gives a shit what the price of Bitcoin is? You're just using the network to make a payment. And the same thing applies to XRP. With regard to a payment network, it's irrelevant what the price of these assets are. You're just using it to facilitate the exchange of capital. So that's the only thing that drives Bitcoin's price. It has no value narrative associated with it. It's not like it's an enterprise that provides a service and a function which infects the psychology of market actors, offering, sophisticated game theory that it tries to influence the behavior of people to attract them for entertainment. Like what's going on with Gods Unchained and Immutable X. That's cool stuff. And that draws people in. There's value in wanting to purchase cards to play because the gaming is fun. And it's the same dynamic that historically occurs with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. And this is just in digital form. So there's plenty of reasons for capital inflow into gaming markets, even in these market conditions, especially as markets get boring and lack opportunity. Gaming still has meaningful potential. One curious view: fair launch newbies don't realize they're just exit liquidity. 100%. What burn rate would make you reconsider a staked Ethereum position? None right now. I just have spot. Excuse me. I don't need a burn rate. I need better self-staking. My internet connection is not reliable enough for me to self-host a node. So I would need to have a reliable staking setup. And I'm not inclined to have ST Ethereum or even maybe a Rocket Pool node. Maybe. But I'm just sitting. This is not a market to do things. This is a market to sit back and be like, holy shit, look what's going on. Holy shit, do I have enough cash to survive? Do I have income to survive? That's this market. And yes, I'm thinking about these things. I'm thinking about what do I do with that Ethereum? What do I do with this? But I'm thinking, do I have worst case scenario covered? What happens if a job is lost? What happens if your GMX returns or your curve returns and the bribes evaporate and there's no income? What do you do? That's what I think about. And I sleep at night well if worst case scenario is covered at least reasonably. That's the most important thing to think about, not what to buy. Certainly not. Tapsy's in the house, a pleasure. FVEAD, any opinion on Chainlink CCIP? Cool tech, but great tech does not mean it's a good investment because as of right now, it's worthless. It does nothing. It doesn't. Is it paying your bills? It's doing nothing. It's great tech. This is not a market for speculation. This is a market where speculators are preyed upon and capitalized upon, and capital is scavenged wherever it is. So the tech is great. Chainlink runs a good part of the entire crypto space. I think Band has had some decent traction over the last year, but not like Chainlink. Chainlink is critical infrastructure. Whether Link actually appreciates at some point, that's another story. I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't hold my breath. 16 mil with a liquidity. This is Uniswap. Let's see if we get a monthly chart. Because that's pretty much a catastrophe. 29 bucks to 750. Yeah, there's nothing to do. Great technology does not make it a great investment. And certainly great technology. And there's probably going to be a bottom, and Chainlink staking, and maybe you get 10% of the money. Is 10% of the money really going to change your life? Listen, 10% on $1 million, you're making 100 grand a year. That's pretty good. You got $1 million bucks? If you don't have $1 million bucks, it's not a great investment. There's other things that you will have to do in order to outperform, in order to grow the portfolio to such a position in which it could work for you. And until then, you have to work to grow the portfolio, and that's done via outperformance, that's done via capital gains, and that's done in a market not like this. In order to appreciate or to live on 10% returns, you need a significant amount of capital. And in order to make that amount of capital, you're not going to get it by saving 10% a year. You have to get it by working, and this is not a market that will offer you the capacity to work to make those kinds of gains. But there will be those markets in the future, just like there was in May of 2020, just like there was in 2016 and 2017, and earlier cycles. Those markets give you capital. They're like, here, for you, the people, here's capital. And that's not this market. What's the difference between waiting for capitulation and buying the bottom? There is no buying the bottom. You never know when the bottom is. The bottom is some vague mythical creature. Capitulation is when some shit goes down and some crazy violent war action takes place, or some bank explodes and there's news media that cause a sharp spike to the downside. Capitulation is an event. Buying the bottom, you never know when it's actually occurring. Raul, yes. HXRO, maximum protocol alignment engaged. So that's the only position I've taken in probably the last 3-4 months at this point. Relatively decent sized position. I have a high opinion of Solana, and I have a high opinion of the team and the folks that are building HXRO. And obviously there's risk all over the place, but frankly, it's actually maintained its value, which is quite extraordinary. I bought it 15 cents, so I have buffer, which is cool. So I'm literally, in a market like this, I'm not underwater on an asset? What the heck does that even mean? So I'm 3 years staked. I'm locked. I'm done. Set and forget. That's the deal for me, Raul. B. Sarah, thanks for the answer. A pleasure. What are your thoughts on Conic Finance? More buy pressure on CRV, more derivatives, more protocols being part of the Federation, yet another protocol that's going to potentially suck liquidity or draw liquidity into the system. I have absolutely zero interest in CNC itself as an asset. I don't care for derivatives. I want the base protocol. People talk often about VE curve being diluted. All right, great. It gets diluted 50, 60, 70, 80%. In 5, 10 years, do you think there's going to be $1 billion, $10 billion, $100 billion a day worth of capital flowing through in transactions the Curve network? That's the bet. If there's $100 billion a day worth of capital going through Curve as a network, what do you think the transaction fees are going to be if you diluted, let's say, 40% by the time? $100 billion a day. Oh, yeah. I see. So obviously there's big things, but that's the speculative bet. In facing dilution, I think the transaction fees would be quite interesting. And that's my mentality on the subject matter. I've been deploying capital since June bottom in select strong assets and mainly Ethereum. Should I continue this DCA approach until 50% is reached, 2 to 5 year time horizon? 50% of what is the question? So let's say you have X amount of dollars, which was 100%, and you've been DCAing until you have 50% of your capital invested. All right. Well, DCA is cool. DCA is a savings methodology. You should always be, if you don't have assets, you want to be buying assets, but you can't allocate your capital in this market, but you can DCA, which is basically allocating very slowly over time, a little drip. If you have 20 grand to invest in the market, if you're buying $50, $75 a week, that's a slow drip, and that's cool. You know why? There's nothing wrong with DCA because it doesn't hurt. What's the worst that happens? If you make $2 grand a week and you're taking $50 a week and you're DCAing, all right, you skip dinner one night. You don't order in one night. All right, so the DCA is cool. That's fine, and that mentality is fine. It's rational. Then you have a market that's rallying everywhere. Then you could deploy the 20 grand portfolio, you deploy 5, 10, 15 grand, and boom, you turn the 15 grand into 30, into 45. You flip it to another asset. Before you know it, you got 120 in a month. But that's not this market. Don't do it in this market. It will take your money. They will take it because they're predators. That's what they are, and the little folks are prey. So don't be prey. HXRO being one of those assets. So, of all the assets that I am exposed to, all right, so it turns out this is an interesting one to DCA. This was an interesting one that I felt comfortable enough to actually take a decent sized position in. I have some buffer. I'm very thankful for that. Will it depreciate? Who knows? And I'll only know in hindsight in a couple of years if it was a good choice or not, or I wasted my capital. So, listen, it sounds good. Vibs. Thoughts on macro recovery? I don't hear anyone talking about L-shaped recovery. There is no recovery. They're going to crush the shit out of everything until, if they don't do something, the whole system will be apocalyptic, and there will be riots, and there will be no imports and no money to pay farmers to pick fruit off the damn tree or truck drivers to truck it to your supermarket. That's when they step in. Anything before that, they're doing nothing. It's going to continue. Directionality will persist until capitulation. And capitulation is a crisis of financial system collapsing proportions. Rates mean nothing. Rates are a dog and pony show. It's all about liquidity. Eyes on Arthur's chart because it's a data point. If you see it breach any of these trend lines, keep your ears peeled to what's going on with gilts and the BOE, the Bank of England. Keep an eye on what's going on in Europe with the ECB. And if they get into a shit show with their bonds spread across the European Union countries, yield curve control just destroys a currency, in which case the dollar just keeps screaming 105, 110. And then before you know it, every country's currency is going every country's going bankrupt because they can't pay the debt. Because the dollar's at 110, going to 115, going to 120, and their economies are experiencing recession. So how the hell are they buying the dollars to pay the debt if their businesses are contracting? And it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy of dollar appreciation. Now the problem is then their countries step in. currency intervention. And how? Well, how did they buy their currency? They can't buy their currency with their currency. They have to buy their currency with a separate currency. And how do they do that? They do it with reserves. Japan does it with U.S. treasuries, and China has U.S. treasuries. They all have reserves, and that's how they buy their currency to support their currency and intervene in the FX markets. And what happens when they keep selling their reserves? There goes our bond market, and our bond market already has the Federal Reserve taking losses on its balance sheet for the first time in forever, frozen. Huh. And man, and then if the bond market keeps contracting, we don't get BIS statistics on OTC derivatives to the middle of next month. What happens if the OTC derivative market is contracting? That means the world is not using bonds as leverage, and everything has changed since '08. The regime post '08 has been a complete disinflationary collapse and a deflation of derivative leverage or leveraged use of sovereign debt in derivative positions, which that's the buy pressure for the government to finance deficit spending. How the hell does the U.S. print $5 trillion worth of bonds next year to cover fiscal year 2023 expenses? Who the hell is going to buy them? You got the Bank of England, you got China, you got Japan. Nobody's going to want to buy the bonds. And the smaller countries don't have a capacity to buy them. You need the big ones, but the big ones are experiencing financial crises themselves. Who the hell is going to buy $5 trillion worth of bonds next year? So now we're into the realm of what the hell is going to happen in 2023. If they can't sell the bonds, the Fed buys them, and then you have an absolute. Listen, if the stock market melts up, if the crypto space melts up, it's probably because a catastrophe is going on. It's gonna be just catastrophe. Even if there's a good thing, even if the crypto space is doing crazy stuff, it's probably a result of something catastrophic in the bond market, where they literally have to buy $3 trillion worth of long end because the banks only buy the short end. So if the foreign reserves are being liquidated, and there goes the long end, and the Fed has to step into the long end with yield curve control, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. Anyway, so I get a little crazy about what's going on in macro. Now I'm not the smartest, and I don't have the complete understanding like a Len Alden or a Raul, but I sure as hell listen to them, and I sure as hell listen to Luke Groman, and I sure as hell have a decent understanding of the insanity that has the potential to play out, and I understand what would cause equities and the crypto space to rally beyond your wildest dreams, and I understand that it won't be a good situation for the vast majority of the planet. If all of a sudden everyone on the stream had $5 million in their bank account, but their damn supermarket, where there's rioters, doesn't mean shit to have $5 million if everyone's rioting. So that's quite disappointing that these are the things, now everything's about percentage of likelihood. Now, what's the odds of some story like that playing out is probably not a large number, but it's not zero. It's not zero, boys and girls. There's a lot of dystopian ways things can go, and there's a lot of hopeful, maybe stable, decent, kick the can kind of ways things can go. But look at the hopeful way that the governments can somehow bring stability to the system. The hopeful way that they're talking about, at least, is CBDCs. And was it Anders Carson's or whatever, the guy from the WEF, the big guy. We make CBDC. Oh my God! Optimistically, we're heading into a dystopia. Oh, great! That's lovely. uh, Last couple questions. Noah, what are your thoughts on 2 trillion reverse repo? So that's the government's piggy bank. If the government wanted a bear steepener where they just collapse rates on the short end of the curve, all they have to do is decrease the rate on the reverse repo to that less of the short end, and the banks are just going to buy the short end, or at least they'll arbitrage the difference between the reverse repo rate and the rate on T-bills and Treasury notes, not Treasuries post 10-year. That's the long end. So the banks like the short end. So they can also turn off the reverse repo market and just completely collapse the short end. But then again, then you have an illiquid bond market. And the last thing the federal government wants is an illiquid bond market. In fact, that's the biggest concern, probably one of the biggest concerns going right now, is the illiquidity of the U.S. Treasury market, the entirety of it, the whole curve. That's catastrophic because if it's illiquid, a big buy or a big sell significantly moves yields and price points. So that's not what you want for the risk-free asset of the planet. So just catastrophe ridden all over the place right about now. Tape pusher, you're making me want to set my limit order buys even lower than they are. Yeah, what do they call them? Stink bids? Stink bids. I don't know. What's important is to have a portfolio. You have assets, you own assets, because when this shit flips and this shit starts going up, it's gonna, by the time you want to buy it, it's gonna be gone. It's gonna be up so high, you're gonna be chasing it. You'll be like, come back, don't go. You're so far away, I can't catch up. That's what the bottom in this market's gonna be like. Buy the bottom. When you see the bottom, it's gonna be gone. And now the other way, conversely, when you see the bottom, it's going to be pretty sad because it can be pretty sad. It could be, oh, I wish I sold right now. On October 10th, I wish I sold more. That could easily be what everyone's saying in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months' time. How do you make choices? How do you make these choices? The fucked up thing is all this shit is binary. Yes or no. Buy or sell. But these choices really do impact our lives and how we could take care of ourselves and our families. So these are very difficult choices. Vibs, any narrative that you think will come up next cycle? Social, liquid staking, DeFi 3.0. I think the biggest narrative on the table is stable coins and the disinflationary collapse of the global Eurodollar system, as Jeff Snyder talks about. And I think stablecoins offer U.S. Treasury the capacity to basically print dollars, which is something the Treasury doesn't have, has a capacity to do, but I don't understand enough to talk about it as much as I'd like to. But the Treasury has a capacity to issue debt, and then it offers to the market an auction, and who the hell is going to buy it? But if they could just give the Treasury as collateral to MakerDAO, and MakerDAO gives them $500 billion worth of DAI, and then they could send that DAI to people, and that DAI, but DAI is not backed by dollars in a bank account, so but maybe they tell Visa, MasterCard, okay, accept DAI as payment, and then all of a sudden people could pay with DAI at the store, and so there's a variety of wild things that could happen in the coming years, and that, to me, makes probably the most sense. Now, Tether stepped on toes, so maybe it's frowned upon, and Treasury won't want to work with them. I don't know. But the point is Tether, USDC, MakerDAO, BUSD, Binance, maybe. Why would Treasury want to work with them? But the whole point is Treasury could literally print dollars by issuing bonds. Now, it could do that in some regards, as we saw in 2020. But literally, with these stablecoin protocols now, there is zero friction. All Treasury needs is one of those three protocols to have a system of custody of treasuries. If they have literally just a functioning system, it's like Treasury just needs the policy in place. And then Treasury's like, here's treasuries. And that's it. And then Treasury now has $500 billion, $5 trillion, whatever the hell it wants worth of a stablecoin, which it can then do a variety of very tantalizing, speculative things with. I mean, look, there's all these debit cards. Why the hell is Visa, MasterCard working on the debit cards? I mean, I run off debit cards that I pay for things everywhere with USDC. I mean, USDC goes right through a debit card like it's nothing. You don't need a bank account. You don't need anything. Pay right with a debit card. So, bam. government says, hey, Visa, MasterCard, turn those debit cards into credit cards or whatever. So there's a variety of very speculative, interesting things that can transpire into the future. One curious view, my man. We have any Ethereum buy orders at have an Ethereum buy order set at 880. This takes a catastrophe. This talk of catastrophe makes me want to set it lower. Listen, what's the goal? What's the purpose? Is the purpose to acquire a critical quantity of Ethereum? If it goes to 880, what if it doesn't go to 880? What if it bottoms at 900, 950, 1,000? What if it never gets to 880? So in my mind, you want to buy it as cheap as possible. But I bought it. I bought it at 1,500, and I'm quite content. I'm not selling it, waiting for an 800. I bought the quantity I wanted. It's about quantity. And if it's the quantity that you want, and if you can afford it, can you afford the quantity that you want at the current price? Do you need the capital for something else? If not, does it matter if Ethereum, you buy it at 1,300, it goes to 880, it goes back to 13, 15, 2, and it goes up. If it goes to 500, 400, doesn't matter. Does the price point matter? Or is it just that you want to acquire a quantity of Ethereum? And that was why I purchased it at 1,300, because I just wanted the quantity of Ethereum. And I didn't need the capital, so I just have it. And it's just there. And I'll look back in 5, 10 years. I didn't even think about it. I don't even think about what it's doing. It's just there. That's cool. That's cool. Dark in August, you have a good one now. Brian, a pleasure. Anything else that I miss? Nope. I got it all. Vibs, you're welcome. Last one, Second Set Maze. Thanks for your honesty and candid discussion. We make our decisions using the best info that we have and the strongest mindset we can muster. Your streams are a great help. I hope it helps, guys. I wish we all could do better. I really hope that we could all traverse this period of austerity and get back to a period of prosperity where we can actually have fun talking about cool, innovative, exciting, technologically creative DeFi protocols once again, because we sure had a blast in 2020 and 2021 until they decided to rug pull everyone. I wish you all a good one. I will see you later this week. Should be on Wednesday. Nope, not Wednesday, and I'll be out. Thursday, Friday. I might not get another stream this week. But as always, I'll be on social media, so feel welcome to annoy me asking me for a stream, but I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible. I wish you all a good one. Tell everyone to subscribe. After party on Discord for the most rational community in the entire crypto space. I will see you next time. Peace.